The European Union is trying to break the internet by passing sweeping copyright laws. What is this all about? What's in the news with stories on government relief, Catalonia secession update, bad cops, avoiding World War III, and a murdering cop. And a trailer for the newest Pax Libertas Productions podcast called Big L Podcast, your unofficial source for Libertarian Party news, arcana, and information, with your host, Libertarian Party insider and the pink flame of liberty, Karen Ann Harlos. This episode is brought to you by Zencash, now known as Horizon, a cryptocurrency that infuses privacy, anonymity, and security done right. Also brought to you by Free Talk Live, providing you with fresh, pro-liberty content 7 days a week on more than 180 radio stations across the country.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the home of Samuel Uncle Sam Wilson, the real-life inspiration for the national mascot Uncle Sam, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at The Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 104, EU Copyright, and it's Tuesday, September 18th, 2018, when there have already been more than 707 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $21,482,800,000,000 in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. One of these days, I plan to do an episode on why copyright is wrong and totally illegitimate. It's been on my radar for a long time, and I just keep pushing it back. However, this story about the European Union passing a law under the auspices of copyright that could essentially break the internet for good is too crazy to pass up. So what happened? The EU has voted to approve its hugely controversial Internet Copyright Directive, which has been lambasted by experts across the globe. The overall bill seeks to update internet copyright laws for the modern era, but two parts of it, specifically Articles 11 and 13, have been criticized for stifling small companies and introducing a meme ban. The bill will now need to be signed off by leaders of the EU member states, so it's not formally law yet. Each country will then be tasked with enforcing the law themselves. Both of these articles have their problems, though, with Article 11 often called a link tax. Although it does remain vague, as most laws do, critics say it would require websites, even places like Google News, to pay a fee for every link to a website they provide, which seems almost unenforceable. Julia Reda, MEP for the Pirate Party, posted on Twitter saying, "The European Parliament just endorsed a link tax that would make using the title of a news article and a link to it require a license." Numerous internet experts, including founder of the web, Tim Berners-Lee, also signed a letter earlier this year arguing against the copyright directive. Some extreme interpretations have suggested that this might even stop ordinary web users sharing news stories. But the text of Article 11 does exempt individuals, supposedly. It says that the new rights given to publishers shall not prevent legitimate private and non-commercial use of press publications by individual users. However, it's not clear what counts as a commercial platform. What about blogs or RSS feeds that aggregate headlines in much the same way that Google News does? What about a Facebook page operated by an individual who also has a huge audience? There's also the question of what counts as sharing a story. An amendment added to the directive in the vote says that mere hyperlinks can't be taxed, nor can, quote, individual words. But how many words is that? When do enough individual words become a snippet? As is common with the copyright directive, it's difficult to know what's even being asked. Julia Reda, MEP for the Pirate Party and one of the directive's leading critics, says it's just not clear enough. She said, "This hyperlinking exception would not work online because no one clicks on a URL that doesn't include a brief description of what it's linking to." Article 13, meanwhile, has received similar ire, as it says that all platforms must prevent any copyrighted content from appearing on their site. Again, it's vague, but it seems to imply that comments on websites or memes would have to be individually checked to ensure they aren't breaking any copyright laws. Yeah, good luck with that one. It says that platforms storing and giving access to large amounts of works and other subject matter uploaded by their users are liable for copyright infringement committed by users, meaning they can be sued by rights holders. So platforms and copyright holders must cooperate in good faith to stop this infringement from happening in the first place. The difficulty, again, is working out what this provision actually means and how it might be enforced. The Verge says, the only way to do so would be to scan all data being uploaded to sites like YouTube and Facebook. This would create an incredible burden for small platforms and could be used as a mechanism for widespread censorship. Critics are clear, though. It means upload filters, forcing sites like YouTube and Facebook to scan every single piece of content that users share on those platforms and checking it against a database of copyrighted material. Such a mechanism would be ripe for abuse by copyright trolls and would make millions of mistakes. The technology simply doesn't exist to scan the internet's content in this way yet. This specter of an upload filter has been framed by critics as the EU trying to kill your memes. Proponents of the bill say this isn't the case and that previous laws make parodies and memes exempt from copyright claims. Rita claims this doesn't help. Rita says there are two problems with this. The first is that exceptions or limitations to copyright on a European level differ from country to country, and a lot of countries do not have exceptions for memes, for example. The second problem is that even where memes are legal, upload filters would not be capable of distinguishing between them and infringing material. Rita gives the example of someone making a reaction GIF from a popular movie. How would an algorithm judge the context that GIF was being used in? It would just spot the infringing content and take it down. Those in favor of the law says these fears are over the top. But considering how many experts are against the law, with many websites also holding protests, it's pretty hard to argue in its favor. Not least because, well, there's no actual plan for how the EU is going to implement these two articles. While Articles 11 and 13 have gotten the most attention so far, the new directive does also tighten up copyright in lots of smaller ways. There are concerns over how the directive treats text and data mining programs, for example, potentially exposing automated scanners to copyright claims. And one clause, only added recently, might give sports leagues exclusive rights over any images or video of a game, a significant escalation in the ongoing fight over sports GIFs that might extend to fan-taken photos of a stadium before the game. So the internet faces a pretty testing time and a somewhat unnecessary battle over copyright. Who knows what this will mean for the future of the web, but early indications are that it doesn't look good at all. Few pieces of legislation have polarized Europe this much in recent years. Critics said the vote heralded the death of the internet, while supporters congratulated themselves for saving the livelihoods of starving artists and giving U.S. tech giants a poke in the eye. So they are essentially admitting to using this law to pick winners and losers in the marketplace and to stick it to certain people that they don't like. Disgusting. If the final vote does go through, though, member states should have 2 years to implement the directive into their own legislation, the usual time period for this sort of law. What happens then is anybody's guess. Rita suggests that if large platforms do have to introduce filters, it could lead to services stopping in Europe altogether, as we saw after GDPR. Rita says they might decide to just geo-block Europe and just make their services not available to people accessing the internet from Europe. They won't have a lot of good options. This would, of course, accelerate the balkanization of the web as the regulatory landscapes of different geographic regions drift away from one another. But that's yet to come. The bad news is that the fight over Europe's internet is far from over. But that's also the good news. There could be a huge issue for the internet as we know it, and I expect this to become as big of an issue as Sesta Fosta if it goes any further. As usual, you can count on me to keep a close eye on this one and bring you any news that comes out of this in the future.
Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
This is Chris Spangle, and I am the host of We Are Libertarians, which you can find in iTunes, Google Play, or at wearelibertarians.com. We are a podcast that brings you all of the irreverence that modern politics deserves by examining current events from a libertarian perspective. So please, check us out at wearelibertarians.com.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In government relief news, hundreds of thousands of water bottles meant for victims of Hurricane Maria are still sitting at a Puerto Rico airport nearly a year after the deadly storm, according to a report. A photo showing the bottles in boxes and covered in a blue tarp on a runway in Ceiba was shared widely on social media Tuesday evening. Abdiel Santana, a photographer working for a Puerto Rican state police agency who took the pictures, posted, "Although you don't believe it, almost 1 million boxes of water that were never delivered to the villages. Is there anyone who can explain this?" FEMA acknowledged to CBS News that the bottles were brought inland in 2017 in the wake of the hurricane and that they were turned over to central government. It's unclear where the breakdown that caused the bottles to never be distributed was caused. President Trump raised eyebrows when he touted the response efforts in a meeting to go over preparations for the potentially devastating Hurricane Florence inching towards the Carolinas. He said, "The job that FEMA and law enforcement and everybody did, working along with the governor in Puerto Rico, I think was tremendous. I think that Puerto Rico was an incredible, unsung success." Yes, nearly 1 million unused and wasted bottles of water while people were going without fresh water is a tremendous success, right? Well, that is the world according to Trump. Who dropped the ball is still unclear. FEMA blames Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico blames FEMA. However, one thing is certain. Government, in one form or another, was responsible. Period. In Catalonia secession update news, about 1 million people gathered in Barcelona to renew their cause for Catalan independence and to demand the release of jailed political leaders almost a year after the unilateral referendum that triggered Spain's worst political crisis since its return to democracy. The annual Diada celebrations commemorate the fall of the city at the end of the Spanish War of Secession in 1714, but in recent years they've been used by pro-independence groups as a show of strength. I personally love this. They are taking a holiday that the Spanish used to commemorate when the Catalans lost their independence to Spain, and now they're turning it on its head. Brilliant move. Organizers said 460,000 people registered to take part in the rally, while police in Barcelona put attendance at about 1 million, making it roughly the same size as last year's event. Once again, the independence movement demonstrated its extraordinary capacity to mobilize its base, filling about 4 miles of Diagonal, the city's broadest street, with hundreds of thousands of flag-waving supporters dressed in T-shirts bearing the slogan, "We're making the Catalan Republic." With chants of "the street will always be ours" and "independence," the massive crowd assembled rather than marched in their allotted sections along the street. Then, at 1714, to correspond with the year that Barcelona fell, there was silence, followed by a wave of sound that roared from one end of Diagonal to the other, where it symbolically toppled a wall representing direct rule that Madrid imposed for several months after the Independence Declaration last October was ruled unlawful. Now look, I know that the people who want this independence are socialists, and they want more government for themselves, but I applaud any movement towards smaller states and secession where people can determine their own lives. I support secession all the way to the individual level, so every step we can use to get closer to individual secession and sovereignty is a win for me. Zencash has changed their name to Horizon to better represent their transition from a pure cryptocurrency to a pioneering platform that protects consumer data. They're focusing more on the wider vision of what Zencash was all about. The new name, Horizon, reinforces that the project is forward-thinking and visionary and will broaden the horizons of what the community can accomplish in the world using the platform. Not only is it one of the best privacy-oriented cryptocurrencies with zero-knowledge technology built into it, but they also have private chat over their network. And soon, Horizon will include the ability to publish information and go anywhere on the web, all with complete privacy. They are working toward the day when anyone will be able to build privacy-based applications on the Horizon platform and generate income from them. This will allow Horizon to bring thousands of real-life services to the community, services that provide freedom, utility, and privacy. The unique spelling of Horizon is a nod to their heritage and recognizes that they remain committed to the vision that their project was built upon. Their coin and ticker symbol remains Zen. So Zencash is now Horizon, and Horizon is bringing privacy to life. You can learn more at horizon.global. That's HORIZEN.global. In Bad Apple's update news, following the shooting death of Botham Jean by the hands of Dallas police officer Amber Guyger that we talked about last week, multiple search warrants were executed at Jean's apartment as part of the investigation. Yes, you heard that right. In the case where a uniformed cop entered the wrong apartment thinking it was her apartment and kills the resident of the apartment, now the cops are serving warrant on the dead victim's apartment. Attorneys for Botham Jean's family are outraged that the document describing drug evidence became public on the same day of his funeral. One of the warrants became a public record Thursday afternoon when it was returned to the judge who signed it. It was shortly after Jean's funeral had ended. It listed several items found in Jean's apartment, including a small amount of marijuana. The search warrant executed in Jean's apartment at Southside Flat specifically sought fired cartridge casings, fired projectiles, firearms, ballistic vests, keys, evidence of blood, video surveillance systems, and contraband such as narcotics and other items used in criminal offenses. Some of the items listed in the inventory from the search are 2 fired cartridge casings, 1 laptop computer, 10.4 grams of marijuana in Ziploc bags, and 1 metal marijuana grinder. The Jean's family legal team was unaware of the document when it was first released. Regardless of whose marijuana it was, the attorney says it doesn't matter. Lee Merritt, attorney for Jean's family, says, "I think it's unfortunate that law enforcement began to immediately criminalize the victim. In this case, someone who was clearly the victim, there was absolutely no bearing on the fact that he was shot in his home. I would love to see more information coming out about the warrants executed on the home of the shooter who lived just below him. I haven't seen any of those. And particularly for it to be on this day, the day that we remember and celebrate him, to see the common assassination attempt on the victim that we often see in law enforcement-involved shootings. I know because of how he lived his life that it won't stain his reputation because he lived his life so virtuously. But it's unfortunate law enforcement has taken this turn." Daryl Washington, another attorney for the Jean family, said, "It doesn't change the story. She claimed that she went into a place she thought was her apartment. She didn't claim she had gone somewhere because she thought there was some sort of criminal activity." Look, this is just disgusting, and like the attorney said, nothing more than a character assassination attempt by the government to try to find a way to explain away the murder of an innocent person by one of their own. They will go to any lengths, clearly, to strengthen that thin blue line to protect one of our rulers. In avoiding World War III news, a day after reiterating his commitment to denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has set out a timeline for the process, saying he intends to get the process done by the end of President Trump's first term in office. Kim committed to a denuclearization earlier this year at a summit with South Korea, and a new inter-Korean summit is coming up in mid-September. The next summit is intended to focus on practical measures to advance the process. North Korea is keen to have a peace treaty, ending the Korean War as part of this process. The Korean War began in 1950, and the U.S. has been resisting efforts to negotiate a peace treaty, saying the deal needs to wait until after denuclearization. While this has fueled a lot of suspicions, it's also likely a part of Kim's interest in getting the process done before Trump's term ends, as a number of Trump's critics are opposed to diplomacy with North Korea in general and might not be interested in a peace treaty at all, even after North Korea gives up the nuclear program. While a lot of U.S. critics have more or less treated North Korea diplomacy as a dead process, especially after President Trump forbade Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's last visit, Kim seems to clearly hope, between his announcements and the next South Korea summit, to get the momentum back. And he needs to get that momentum back, let's be honest. With Trump waving his dick around at anyone he wants to show how much of a man he is, Kim needs to stay on the ball and get this done. Having one less nuclear state in the world is a big deal, especially when that state is a nation like North Korea. Now, maybe we can work on denuclearizing the U.S., especially since Trump holds the button.
One of the largest reaching liberty programs today is Free Talk Live, with a 3-hour radio program 7 nights a week on more than 180 radio stations across the country. They are so influential on talk radio that they are the number 27 radio program in the country, according to Talkers Magazine. They also have a daily podcast that's been voted Best Political Podcast 5 times by podcastawards.com. The hosts of Free Talk Live are street preachers for the ideas of liberty. They take the message of peace, liberty, and cryptocurrency to the masses on the radio, where they are not preaching to the choir. You can listen via podcast or live via audio streaming or the Twitch or YouTube channels at freetalklive.com. I listen to their podcast myself every single morning when I get up to get a fresh perspective on news and very, very strong libertarian perspectives. Make sure to add them to your feed at freetalklive.com.
In Killer Cops news, in June, the taxpayers of Burlington, Iowa, were told that they will be hit with a $2 million bill to pay for a police officer who shot and killed an innocent mother. The tragic scenario was captured on video, and the fact that most of that video remained a secret was part of the reason the family received the settlement in the wrongful death suit. However, all of that has now changed, and the video was released this past week. I've seen so many cop abuse and cop murder videos that I have, it seems, become a bit desensitized to them, because they don't seem to hit me as hard as they used to. I'm not certain that's a good thing, but no matter how desensitized I've become to these, this one hit me hard. Watching a mother get shot and then die right in front of her son was heartbreaking. It hurt bad. I encourage you to watch this video to understand what I'm talking about, but keep in mind it is a very tough video to watch. In May, during a federal court hearing in Davenport, Iowa, officials revealed that the confidential police video, a key piece of evidence in exonerating a cop who killed the innocent mom, did not corroborate the cop's claims that he made before firing the fatal shots that accidentally killed the mother of two. Now, we have the evidence showing that this was true. The Burlington Police Department released a 12-second clip from a Burlington police officer's body cam showing him shooting and killing Autumn Steele. The alleged dog bite was a key component in the case which allowed police officer Jesse Hill to be justified in firing the shots that killed Steele in January of 2015. According to the official story, the German Shepherd jumped on Hill's back and bit his thigh, causing him injuries which required treatment. The shooting was ruled justified, and Hill was not disciplined, according to investigators, because Hill was in fear for his life during the dog attack and therefore did nothing wrong when he fired his weapon multiple times, hitting Steele in the chest, killing her. There's only one problem, though. The video does not show any of this. Burlington Police, the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigations, and the Des Moines County Attorney have all refused to release the entire video, and now we know why. Not only does the unreleased video show no bite, but Hill never says that he's been bitten, a direct contrast to what he wrote later in his report. The city claims they kept the video secret this entire time because its position is to keep peace officers' investigative reports, such as the body cam video in this case, out of the public eye. A statement released this week said the city's attorneys have resisted the public disclosure of this video and the other records to be released because such videos and records are legally considered confidential under Iowa law. The tragic incident unfolded that fateful January day as Gabrielle Steele, Autumn's husband, was loading up their 4-year-old son when Autumn began yelling at Gabrielle and the police were called. Officer Hill was at the Steele residence acting as an escort in their domestic dispute incident. During this commotion, the couple's dog came running out of the house. In the video, we can hear the dog growl, at which point Hill says, "Get your dog." Only moments later, Hill fired off 2 rounds. One of the shots struck Autumn Steele in the arm and another in the chest. The dog was also hit, but he recovered. As claimed by the attorneys for the Steele family in June, the video does not show the bite, nor does it show the officer ever mention the bite. However, it does show the officer concerned that he will go to jail for what he just did, as he should have. Hill said, "Where are you shot, ma'am? Ma'am, where are you hit? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." A few moments later, he tells a fellow officer on the video, "Oh shit, Tim, I'm fucking going to prison. Oh my God." Shortly after the killing, Des Moines County Attorney Amy Beavers released a 7-page report detailing the reasons why Officer Hill will not face charges for killing Autumn Steele. In her report, Beavers cited the fact that Hill is a police officer. Beavers says that he was in a difficult situation in which he was trying to stop a domestic dispute as well as protect himself from a dog. Being that he was a police officer in this situation, he is entitled to special fucking treatment, according to Beaver. Look, this was a clear-cut case of one person negligently taking the life of another person. And now we are finding out that there is an alleged cover-up, and the only people that will be held liable are the taxpayers, to the tune of $2 million. The cop, who clearly murdered someone under circumstances that would have led to charges for anyone who is not a cop or one of our rulers, walks away scot-free and continues to wear a badge and rule over us. My question is, I wonder when he will get his promotion. Now, you guys know that I've completely given up on the Libertarian Party as a vehicle for true liberty. However, I know there are many actual libertarians who refuse to give up on the party as easily as I did. I respect that, even though I disagree with them on it. But that certainly doesn't mean that I won't help those real libertarians have a voice. That's what I try to do here. I try to help libertarians use their voices to fill niches in podcasting that need to be filled. And a new show coming to the Pax Libertas Productions lineup attempts to do just that. When Pax Libertas Productions was still an idea in the back of my head, I wrote out a list of potential podcast ideas for shows on the network that didn't even exist yet. I still have that list today, and I refer to it every once in a while. One of the items on that list from way back is an unofficial Libertarian Party Watch podcast. A note I put beside that idea at the time is, preferably hosted by an anarchist, Tom Knapp, Karen Ann Harlos. And now this week marks the beginning of that podcast that started out as one idea of many. And I'm so thankful to have one of the hosts from my original list, Karen Ann Harlos, the pink flame of liberty. Karen Ann Harlos became a libertarian in 2014 during a fortuitous visit to LP.org and reading the party's platform and its statement of principles. Since that time, she rose to prominence through a nearly endless stream of exuberance and work ethic. Amongst other positions, she served as the communications director for the Libertarian Party of Colorado, Region 1 representative for the Libertarian National Committee representing 9 western states, Libertarian Party Historical Preservation Committee chair, and chair of the National Platform Committee for the 2018 convention. Her particular interest is in party history and its statement of principles, and she's been a featured speaker on these topics across the country, including here in New Hampshire. In 2018, she was elected as the party secretary on a platform of transparency, accountability, and accessibility. This new show, with her as host, is called The Big L Podcast, and it's your unofficial source for Libertarian Party news, arcana, and information for the liberty-minded political junkie by a political anarchist who is inside the party very heavily. Now, I know there is an issue with the idea and the term as political anarchist. I get that. I have major issues with the idea myself. However, I concede that there are people who call themselves political anarchists, and if I'm going to have a podcast on the Pax Libertas Network about the LP, it's going to be done by an anarchist, period. And if you give Karen Ann Harlos time in the first few episodes, she explains to you why she's a political anarchist, and she makes a pretty convincing argument why all anarchists should be working within the Libertarian Party. I personally still need more convincing myself, but I will certainly be listening to this show to see if she can ever convince me. The first 3 episodes of this show have been recorded, so you'll be getting a new episode every week for the first few weeks. After that, her shows will be every other week for the time being. You can listen to the show and subscribe using Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Overcast, and others at biglpodcast.com. If you're still a part of the LP, or if you have hope that it can again become a principled party for true libertarians, then I highly recommend you check this podcast out and start listening from the very first episode. The first episode is kind of an introductory episode where she talks about her experience, how she became a libertarian, and kind of what the show is going to be about going forward. The next 3 episodes, from 2 through 4, all talk about the statement of principles and why it is so important to the Libertarian Party. That is a 3-part series you do not want to miss. So here's a trailer for the new show. Make sure to subscribe to this show at biglpodcast.com. I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to The Big L, your unofficial source for Libertarian Party news, arcana, and information for the liberty-minded political junkie.
The topics covered will be almost exclusively LP-centric. There are a lot of general liberty programs out there, a lot of general liberty education and shows and activities, but there's very few, perhaps none at this point, that are focused specifically on the Libertarian Party. And these topics will include insider information from my experiences as an officer of the party and a prolific LP activist, and you will walk with me through my adventures.
Here's your host, Libertarian Party insider and the pink flame of liberty, Karen Ann Harlos.
So, a bit about me. I am an unabashed libertarian radical, an anarchist, if you will, and a diehard Libertarian Party partisan. I would be a classic example of the Kantian partyarch, a term that he might have meant as a pejorative and that I wear with a certain sense of perverse pride.
Find us at biglpodcast.com.
No doubt this will be a journey for both of us. For if there is nothing to be learned, nothing about which we might change our minds, then the whole enterprise of public discourse is lost. And while that might sound overly serious, and now that I hear it pretty borderline pretentious, trust me, I am not particularly serious, and we will have quite a bit of fun.
Subscribe today and help support the show by going to biglpodcast.com.
So the LP was started as the anti-political political party. The Libertarian Party is very good at one thing: taking a small government constitutionalist and turning them into an anarchist in short order.
Thank you for listening to The Big L, where size does matter. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.
Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite FSP events director, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/104. I have one new supporter this week. Shane S. became a $1 per episode donor through Patreon. Shane, thank you so very much for that donation. It is so much appreciated. Thanks to Shane and all of my other awesome supporters, I am at $274 per episode, or 54.8% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Thank you for all your support, guys. Really, I can't thank you enough. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'll be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you, so add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I don't have any new Apple Podcast reviews this week, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thanks to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys are the best. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.